Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Minds of Mortgage, where we explore all kinds of cutting edge strategies and innovation that are shaping the mortgage industry today. I'm your host, Kelly Yale, and I am so thrilled to introduce today's guest, who is Robin Clayton. Robin is a seasoned digital strategy leader at PRMG, where she excels in MarTech and marketing operations and communications and automation and social media and all the amazing stuff that you guys know I'm hyper passionate about. Robin is a real expert in this field, and she has a wealth of knowledge that she is going to be talking about today. She was also recently named one of Housing Wire's marketing leaders to watch for 2024, and I just personally could not be more excited to introduce you to Robin. Robin, welcome to the Minds of Mortgage podcast. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Kelly. That was a hell of an intro. I'm feeling
I mean,
good.
I mean, what was I mean, to be fair, it's not easy when you have someone who has, what I will say is our shared kind of skill set, right? Which is when you're a master of a lot of really strange things that make you kind of a danger, not or not even a danger, but like a savior, I think maybe a little bit, in our current world in mortgage. I mean, let me ask you this, friend. How did you get here? How did you end up in mortgage?
Oh gosh. It was a temp job.
Okay, I love this.
Yeah, I graduated from college with an English literature degree, so I knew my Shakespeare. I minored in environmental science. I wanted to work as a scientist, and that just wasn't in the cards. So I needed a job, started temping, and the largest employer in Southern California where I lived was Countrywide.
Okay.
So I started in Countrywide, actually in correspondent lending. Was there for a while, ended up getting nabbed up, went to Washington Mutual, then back to Countrywide through the Bank of America transition.
Mhm.
Was there for almost 8 years. And then when that kind of all imploded, ended up at boutique lenders, jumbo lenders, builders, all sorts of places. And now I'm at PRG. I just celebrated my 4th year anniversary.
Amazing, congratulations, I love
Thank
that.
you.
I'm gonna tell you something funny because I think you'll enjoy this. Just so the audience knows, I have never met Robin. She has never met me. This is our first time meeting. And yet for the last few years, so many people have remarked to me, "You have to meet Robin, she's just like you." I don't know if people say that to you, Robin, but they definitely say it to me. And it's so funny to me that you went to college to become a writer, that you studied English literature, things like that. That's exactly what I did.
Oh, really?
And yeah, 100%, because I thought I was going to be a writer, which technically we are, right? We end up carrying that, English degree. And don't even get me started on Shakespeare, sister. Don't get me started. Okay, we'll quote all day. We'll go back and forth. It'll be great. But it's interesting to me that the storytellers are so omnipresent now, when it comes to content, and it's so funny. I'm sure you have this as well, which is people are like, "Oh yeah, we can use AI now," and I always think, "Oh gosh, you have no idea what it is to create the story of a brand." And the amount of work it takes. I assume that you have created the PRMG sort of story.
So PRG is interesting because when I joined, they already had a marketing department in place,
Okay.
led by Paul Aceto, our chief marketing officer, and he has really been the steward of the brand, the culture, really establishing the history. He's also like our company historian, been here way longer than I have. So I have worked at other companies where that I've been in this role, but in this particular role, it's allowed me to focus 100% of my efforts on being more data driven and singularly trying to affect revenue. So storytelling is absolutely massively huge. You have to understand, you have to have empathy, all that kind of stuff. But that's one thing I'm so glad to have him as sort of my partner in crime, where he can focus on that, make sure when we show up at a trade show, we look like $1 million. But I'm in the back end saying, hey, did that actually move the needle? Are we getting more referrals, more loans? And I really like that side of it more.
Do you consider yourself in that scenario marketing operations?
Yeah, I lead more, excuse me, in operations and technology. That's where I kind of found my sweet spot. Um, I say that I'm the poor man's graphic designer. If you need someone to do design and you're on a budget, it's just not where I found my, my talents to lie. I'm an Excel junkie. I'm really into data and logic and reporting. I find more energy in that space, as opposed to the other sides of it. I can do them, but I'm finding sort of my niche going really deep in the data side.
I mean, they're calling for marketing operations people to be sort of the next wave of humans, right? The people who understand data decisioning, they understand where to put the money, where you're going to see the most ROI, constantly evaluating traffic sources. I mean, that is supposed to be sort of the next gen human being that is indisposable at your company. So that's a good place to be.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I enjoy it.
So what it's interesting too because I mentioned before that you're kind of a bridge, right? And we call that martech, right? We call it marketing technology. And most people speak one language or the other. The engineers, they usually speak tech. The creatives usually speak marketing. And then there's hybrids who can bridge those conversations. We also refer to ourselves as translators, which
Mm.
is kind of interesting because you can translate the needs of sales for marketing to understand how to create the concept, but for technology to be able to deliver on it, right? And that is a different role. Do you do some of that in what you do?
Oh, 100%. 100%. You have to hold all those things in your mind, when you're thinking about a marketing campaign. Understanding the mindset of a consumer. Where are they physically when they receive an email or text message? Are they rushing to get the kids to bed? Or are they, in the middle of a stressful day of work, being very cognizant of what they're doing, providing value, telling them a story that will compel them to take action, then having the mechanics, is the system set up properly? Is your DNS configured? Will the code render on a mobile device versus a desktop device? And then the visuals, doing A/B testings, making sure they're really captivating, being humble when you get it wrong, and being open to change and innovate, and being able to communicate and manage your vendors. So, they are your partners and they're helping you execute. But you got to hold all that in your mind at the same time. That's what gets you success.
I couldn't agree with that more, and I just find it to be such a rare person. I read a description for a job this weekend at I'm not going to say who it's for, but let's just say the big guy. Okay, this very large mortgage company, and they're looking for essentially somebody like us, right? But when they described it all out and I was reading it, I thought, who do you think is going to take this? Who do you think this person is? Because I
Right.
know very few people who can do what you just described. I understand mortgage and I understand the people who need a mortgage. I understand how to speak to those people in a personalized way, where and when and how that story will affect them most, making sure that they're represented in what I am sending to them, making sure that we have the right cadence of that messaging, making sure that every piece of technology that we count upon is introduced at the correct stage of this process to get them engaged in what it is that we do. In order to do that effectively, my friend, the amount of things we need to hold true at the same time to create a campaign is why when people say to me, "Yeah, but I just chat GPT'd it," I'm always like, "Yeah, but you're going to get a chat GPT result on that as well." Because it's really, I will say to you, such a really cool ability and such a really cool thing to be able to create with collaboration of really smart people who work around you, but then to be able to say like, yes, the dream is to get someone in a home, but we made it easier and better, and they understood it so much more, and working with the company meant that it improved their lives. And I think if you can have that value proposition as an employee at a company, and you can give that to your brokers, to your loan officers, that in and of itself is how you get to be sort of at the top of the game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Now,
Yeah,
when you like, what is your day-to-day look like right now? Like how, like, what are you excited about in your tech stack? Like what's your kind of vision for the rest of 2024?
a lot of my day is Zoom calls. I'm on meetings, typically with vendors. That's most of my time. Just, some of it is just slogging through, punch lists and trying to get stuff done. Some of it is special projects. We do a tremendous amount of pilots and beta testing. We're always experimenting new tech, trying to test things out. And then when I'm not doing that, the rest of my time, well, actually, no, some of my time is training. So I train every single day of the year to our sales force to make sure they understand whether it's sales coaching, strategy. I'm doing a lot of confidence stuff right now because people are just feeling demoralized and discouraged, and they need someone to say, hey, you have a place in this world. People want to get loans right now. And then mechanical, sort of practical kind of stuff like that. And then the rest of the time, if I'm lucky enough to have it, I'm doing strategy work. So really mapping out, what are we doing? Is the stuff that we're doing working well? How can we innovate? How can we connect things in a creative way? Maybe it means collaborating with other departments in the company. I really value the relationships I forge with our finance team, with our accounting team, with our technology team, with our national marketing department, just to make sure we're all coordinating, we're all communicating. That gives us a little bit of velocity, as well as with our technology partners, making sure they're doing what they said they would, holding them accountable, and also challenging them. I do a lot of, have you thought of this, or your competitors are doing this, or are you aware of what's in the marketplace? You need to step your game up, because I desperately want our technology partners to be successful. I want their competitors to be successful. I want an active, lively marketplace where there's lots of innovation, there's lots of competition. I think that's how we're going to grow, and we're going to get something exciting. I cringe when I see sort of these monoliths. Well, they're the only game in town. They're the only ones who do this. They get complacent. They're just expecting auto renewals to get a check every month. And sometimes they lose sight because they don't have to chase the customer, and they don't have to, enchant them and do customer delighters anymore.
I believe myself to be the best and worst friend of any vendor I work with.
I love that.
I mean, you are not permitted to not be on your game if you're one of my vendors, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. Um, but at the same time, I'm going to make your platform stronger. I guarantee you that I am. And I feel like you're the same way, where I'm not here to bug you because this field from Encompass isn't coming over. I'm here to tell you that if you innovate like this and you let me test something out as a theory, this is probably going to be something you're going to be able to share with all of your customers. And that for me is a win-win. And yet sometimes they're not receptive to changing anything. And that can be the most frustrating part.
Yeah, no, we are exactly the same. I feel exactly the same way. I want them to stay on top of their game. And I will say, the companies that do listen, and I've had situations where I'll say, you need to have your head of product, your head of engineering on this call. And
Yes.
there's technology partners who are like, heck yeah. And I'll have like 20 people on a Zoom call saying, we're here to take notes. We're ready to learn with an open heart. Hey, remember how much you paid for this advice. If they don't like it, fine, but at least listen. And then there's other technology companies that will say, no, thanks. And then usually halfway through the call, the CEO shows up, the CTO shows up, the head of, IA shows up. And I'm like, I told y'all, like, we're here to win. We're here to make you better.
Yeah.
And I get so excited when I hear these companies that take that feedback back from me, from you, from other leaders in this industry, and they get better. And they're like, I have more sales than I need. I'm incredibly successful. Things are doing really great. I'm like, fantastic. No different than the mortgage industry. If we don't listen to the customer, if we don't adapt and evolve, oh, you want to take an application on the cell phone? Well, I better make that a seamless experience for you. Or, hey, you only want to communicate by text? That's how we should communicate. We don't expect them and dictate how they want to be served, and it should be the same for the companies that serve us.
I totally agree. I love too that you said that you spend so much time training. And I want to double down on that for a second. And you probably see me post a little bit about this because I've really started in the past couple of weeks talking about this. I mean this with zero disrespect to people who choose to be coaches full time. But you and I both know how much time we spend coaching for absolute free. We coach for free, we train for free, we train on other people's tech platforms for free. We're setting the bar typically with those. They're better than the company, the tech vendor, that we're working with. It's better than the one they're putting on for their customers. And I'm always like, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like, this is a lot of hats. It's the right thing to do. Companies that don't have people like us who are not just making the training and the coaching super fun, but also hyper actionable, right? Because if you're paying a coach and the coach is like, you should make 20 phone calls, and they're like, okay, except that when you talk to us, we're like, hey, you need to make those 20 phone calls. They're all waiting for you in your task in your CRM. We went ahead and scripted out half of them, and we've gone ahead and given you sort of an avatar of what you should be saying because if you check your notes, we have X, Y, and Z already in there. Hi, right? I'm sorry. That's a different conversation. So the coaching with us is essentially like a tip, like a bonus. But I'm sure you see this with what you're doing. I mean, you're spending a lot of time coaching and training, right?
Oh yeah, a tremendous amount. Like I said, every day of the year I'm training or coaching, and I do kind of laugh at that, And on one hand, I'm like, God, that must be nice, just to kind of do that. But for our side, not only do I have to train and coach, but I also have to listen. So when they're like, yeah, but I went in the CRM and that button is broken, or this didn't work, or my customer freaked out, it's like, okay, well, then it's also my job to take that back, tweak the platform, or maybe this is a communication issue and they're mixed up and that's not a correct feedback. But being able to adapt and solution as we're doing that, I want it to be a conversation. I work for sales.
Right.
They actually structured it so I report directly to our chief lending officer, Kevin Perenio, obviously a LinkedIn celebrity and an industry legend. And I love that I report through sales because then there's no confusion about what my job is and what I'm there to do. I'm to make my salespeople to recruit top talent for people who are excited, they want to join the company, and for the people who are already here to make them be like, oh, man, did I make a good decision? I'm so glad I'm here. But that requires every day. It's just like, how do I make sure we're committed to you and we've got solutions for you and you've got problems? I'm here to listen. I'm not here to, you know, push back. There are customers. And I've worked with people and organizations who forget that and they think, oh, salespeople are so annoying, or, I don't want to do that, or just another request. And I'm like, don't get it twisted. They pay my salary. And
Hmm.
we try to really embody servant leadership here of just, how can I help you? How can I help you do more loans? Now, I will say, on the other side, if I take the time to say, okay, here is your roadmap. Here is your step 1, 2, 3. You're going to do this. And this will, I've proven statistically that it will make you 6, 10 times more funding per month. But if you don't do that, if you don't actually call the lead back, if you don't log into the system, if you don't do this basic stuff, I have what I call high impact tasks that I've identified. Like you mentioned, really simple. Just do the darn thing. If you're not going to do it, that's when it's just like heartbreaking. I'm like, there's only so much I can do. But I'm going to keep trying to find. And for the people who want to work hard and they want to listen, I will happily make them wildly successful.
Yeah, same sister preach. I'm with you. I used to start trainings for our old CRM motivator. I used to start their trainings, and I would say, okay, show hands. Who here hates money? And everybody would laugh. And I go, who here hates success? And everybody would laugh. And I'd go, great. Because if you just spent 30 minutes in your system today, you could have closed 3 more deals this week. And that is the basic truth. So you either hate making money or you hate being successful, but either way, it's on you. And with Motivator, and you and I have never kind of discussed how we build technologies out. One thing that we did was, instead of allowing anything to fail, we just automated its success. So, and I mean this with love, but I learned very early on that if my job was to make sure that loan officers did the thing I was telling them to do, I would lose. But if the system did it, and just went ahead and curated that relationship, or took that a bit, that data, and made a decision, and understood sort of it could live, and do things on its own and be autonomous a little bit, that they would just have so much more success. But you have to have an incredible level of trust with your sales people in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
not
that
in,
was
go ahead,
you go
from.
ahead. Yeah, that was a lesson I learned the hard way. Um, Early on in my career, we set up a CRM. The company had spent a ton of money doing it. And I went to the CEO and I said, this sucks. None of the LOs are logging in. They're not sending out the emails. They're not doing the things they're supposed to, just complaining. And he just looked at me and he's like, it's their job to sell. It's their job to do loans. It's not their job to log in, click the little buttons, and do all that stuff. You need to figure out how to make it automated for them. And I was, huffing and puffing. And then I thought about it. And I was, to your point, what if there was a system that did all that stuff? So they're not tied to a desk. So they can be out on the field. They can be making relationships, taking phone calls, showing up to closings. And the system is the one that has the logic to see, oh, they just opened up their email. So now I'm going to do this, or we're going to be doing retargeting. And, if they're visiting the website, or we're tracking abandoned applications. Don't make them work for it, bring it to them. And that takes so much technical and precise and mapping, and you really got to have your game on in order to do that. But I really pride myself in that I want my salespeople to sell, and then our marketers to automate. And that's what I spend my whole time doing, is just trying to build the best mousetrap.
Oh, it's so true. And you can't, I mean, you can, but you really can't make people understand the insane value in a data rich environment in your CRM. You cannot really. I was talking about it the other day because I said our biggest problem in this industry, right, is that is that I always think of a loan officer or a broker as somebody who's going on a sport fishing trip, right? And they get in like the shiny boat and they're super excited, and you open up the big lure box and they're so excited about all the shiny things, right? Not the regular hook. Regular hook is boring, but the lures are sexy. And then we can pick our bait, and we think if we give them the sexy lures and we give them the best bait, that they're going to have the best day fishing. And that's not what they want. What they want is me in scuba gear under the water with a big fish. And once they put that lure in, they would just want that fish on the hook, because the joy is in the reel, the reeling it in the boat and the picture in that. But we're constantly trying to figure out how we're going to make them happy with the box of lures. And I just don't think that that's ever going to get us there, right? It's so much easier to give people wins than to teach them the value of the different ways they can do things. And that, to me, is what automation is. You tell someone, you tell a loan officer, listen, imagine this. Imagine you have somebody today who you talk to, and they're just not going to qualify because their credit isn't good, right? You cannot convince me in the real world that people don't move on to the next transaction, right? Hey, this isn't going to work. Maybe I send it forward an email over to my credit counselor. Potentially, I do maybe one other step. In the right solution, that person should immediately be put on a credit improvement campaign where we're monitoring their credit score, where we understand what they're doing, where we're retargeting them over time, where we're giving them information about how to become a successful homeowner, right? We should already know whether this person is currently renting or if they need to buy another house. We should know all of these factors and be able to personalize that journey. But that's not what's really important. What's really important is that the second that credit score hits the right number, we're going to let that customer know it is time. Like, they've done this amazing job, and celebrate that win. But let that loan officer know, hey, listen, you just put the hook in, but the fish is already on it. It's time to reel. And if we start looking at our job as that instead of giving them all the options in the world, I think we're more successful. How do you feel?
Yeah, we actually are building exactly what you described. We work with a company called Credivolve,
Hmm.
who does that, where they'll do credit counseling. And we've been working on sort of a one of a kind journey inside of Total Expert to when that precise credit score hits, of having a script that shoots out to the loan officer, as well as marketing going out to the consumer and coaching along the way to let them know, hey, we're here, we're an advocate. One of the things I try to remind the loan officers is that there's a lot of other hooks in the water. And if you think you're the only person who's monitoring that consumer's FICO score or waiting for them and getting real time alerts, just like we do, just like our competitors do, I'm like, you have to stay ahead of the game. And the only way a consumer is going to take your email, your phone call, your text message is if you've been dripping on them this whole time, if you've been doing regular phone calls. You can't jump out of the bushes 2 years later and say, hey, I know you barely remember me. You just see, your mortgage payments on auto pay. You don't even remember who the lender is
Yep.
anymore. But by the way, will you do a loan with me? And no, it's not going to work like that. You've got to have a plan. You've got to stay in front of them. And the beautiful thing is, I can automate all of that, so
Sure.
you don't need to worry about it. And I think it's funny when I meet, very rarely, but occasionally I will meet a loan officer who says, I don't need it.
Hmm.
I don't need automation. I don't need a CRM. I'm amazing. I'm going to remember. I'm going
Sure.
to call them on their birthday. I'm going to email them a newsletter every week. And it never works. Sorry, it's not going to work. It's just like the person who's like, well, I'm going to remember to do social media. No, you're not. People who
Sure.
do social media really well schedule it in advance. They do bulk posting. You've got to have a plan. You have to automate. You have to structure it. You're not superhuman. Life is going to happen. You may have a family member that gets sick. You may be surrounded with loans and you have too many, to work on. I mean, I don't know.
But it's all insanely true. I mean, unless I don't know anybody else in the industry who had kind of the weird role that I had for a long time, which was that for 7 years I sat behind an enterprise. Everyone uses the exact same system. Everything is data driven. And to your point about data, I always say data is an art and you are not an artist. So just, you have to remember that, okay? Everything looks like you're jumping out of the bushes. It's freaky if you do that. If you so from the very beginning of sort of when we had the ability to have data, we started framing up the conversation for the future with, it's my job to always look out for your best equity strategies. And therefore, we are using the best technology in the world to do that so that we're ready before you even know you're ready. That way, when we took when we take any sort of monitoring alert, if we take any sort of behavioral data and we apply it to a workflow, that way it doesn't feel like something's coming out of left field because genuinely we promised you that this whole time. And the other thing, to your point about loan officers who like to say, like, I'll do it myself. Do you have a 48% post close open rate? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. Why? Because you blast ridiculous emails constantly to your database so they unsubscribe. If we could teach one lesson today, Robin, let's teach them this. Ready? When you send blast emails, you unsubscribe, get unsubscribes. When you have unsubscribes, you shoot yourself directly in the foot because a talented leader like Robin is going to be able to take that human being in your database and turn it into one, two, three, four transactions for you if you just let her. But if you send out blast emails and you have unsubscribes, you lose the ability to be in front of that person for those next four. Is that a fair statement?
It is. It is. And I would also add, unsubscribes can be an opportunity. If you're clever, you can get on the phone and explain what you're doing and why you're sending emails and win them back. But yeah, no, you're completely true. And the people who, are doing, I have some folks that are like, oh, I found 100,000 email addresses off the back of a truck.
Yeah.
I'm going to start emailing them and all sorts of fun, non-compliant, ringless voicemails, spam
Yeah.
texting, no TCPA, no opt-in. And they're just like, and I'm like, remember, I'm a data person. I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at your applications and fundings. Huh, that's weird. You haven't done a single loan.
Yep.
So perhaps that's not working because I don't know about you guys. The amount of junk email that I get every single day, where, if you have Gmail, you're going to see, 1% of it. It's such a noisy space, and you're only going to get there if you have a relationship, if you have a strategy. Let us worry about that. And sometimes I say to people, I'm like, do you want to join my team? Do you want to sit in this chair and do this job? Because if you love doing that part, there might be, and I do have salespeople who have worked on my team throughout the years who are phenomenal. They don't want to sell, but they love the technical side. They love
Oh,
the
yeah.
creative side. And I'm like, hey, this is a really fun type of work to do. Not everyone's cut out to be salespeople, but true salespeople are out there, they're hunting, they're making it happen. They're not getting caught in the weeds. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're not spending hours and hours on the phone with tech demos and doing all this kind of stuff. That's not a sales generating activity.
Right.
One of the things I did want to mention is time. So this has been something I've been thinking about for the last year. I'm sure you've seen the studies of 28 to 36%, depending on what study you look at, is the amount of time that salespeople actually spend on revenue generating activities. About 70% of it is not. And I had a gal who was a middle of the road producer. She wanted to be a high producer, refused to use a CRM. And I found out every day she would be like, oh, it's Susie's birthday. I'm going to open up Outlook and type in happy birthday. That's fantastic, but that's not a sales generating activity. And you pat yourself on the back and you're like, well, I open up my Outlook and I do the little thing and I had to go find her email address because it was in my phone. I didn't remember what it was. What a waste of time. And that's what I'm trying to do. My thesis is that automation creates time. Delegation creates time. And that is the gift that I give our salespeople, is the gift of time, so they can take that 28, 30% and spend more time doing the activities that actually put loans in their pocket.
It is so true and so valid. I'm sure you've seen this the last couple of years. Obviously, we've all been in the middle of the storm, right? We've all been experiencing it, and sales has had the same kind of gut punches that almost every single department has, right? With just less people, more work, having less budget to work within. I mean, everyone is sort of having those same experiences. But the thing that is, I guess, interesting to me is that we we want sales to be so successful, right? And every day there are going to be two different things, two different sides of that. What can you do that are income generating, and what can you do that it is relationship generating, right? But we have to keep our eye on the ball. And I've noticed this reluctance so much to get back to these sort of picking up the phone, going to networking events, going to open houses. It almost feels as though there's this idea that we've evolved past having to do the stuff that really got us the sphere that we had before, 2020, right? But in many ways, we're having to go back to those things. Do you see some reluctance from people who don't really want to re-engage at that level?
100%, 100%. And it's so interesting. You're one of the only people I've seen to really call that out. I appreciate that because, so, like you said, I put the fish on the hook. I'm like, in some cases, I've even, filleted, maybe have a little
Mhm,
lemon sauce cooking for
mhm.
them.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's like, all I need you to do is pick up the phone. They've already expressed interest. They're ready to go. They're qualified. I just need you to do that. And they're not. They're not checking their emails. They're not picking up the phone. And I just like you gave that great analogy. Hey, does everyone like money? Like, what are we missing here? And when I actually have these consultations with them to really dig under what's happening. And that's when we get to the root of it all. They feel so discouraged. They feel so defeated. A lot of them have had to take on second jobs and they're just not focused. They're not checking their email all the time. They're not really plugged in. They're kind of disengaged. And unless, their cousin calls them up and says, "Hey, I want to do a loan. Can you help me out?" They're just kind of checked out. And we've seen a lot of loan officers exit the industry, but I would argue, I think we need more to do that.
Oh, yeah.
This is a career. If it's just, hey, maybe I'll do a loan once a year if I feel like it, it's it's just kind of frustrating when I see people who actually wake up every morning. You have the top producers waking up at 5 a.m. They're already on it. They've just got a plan. They've got a process in place. They're so inspiring to watch. They outwork everybody and they outperform people. And then when I meet people who are like, I don't feel like going to open house. I don't want to make a phone call. I don't want to shoot a video. Can you create a deep fake AI avatar to do a video for me?
Mhm.
So I don't actually have to make a video. And I'm like, yes, I can. And I do have the technology. But let's be real. It would be a lot easier and cheaper if you took 30 seconds with your cell phone and shot a video. I'm just like, why are you fighting me on this?
I mean, not to be this person, because I'm not this person, but let's just do it anyway. Don't tell me that tech isn't coming for your job if you want tech to do every single component of your job. I don't understand why you have a job if you won't pick up the phone, because phone calls and meetings are literally the last piece of the puzzle. It's the last human component. Are you understanding that? Like it's so important at this juncture to differentiate why a loan originator is going to have a lucrative career moving forward. Because if we're saying, well, tech doesn't help, or if we're saying, let's go all the way into you scripting my videos through an avatar of me that we put in social media, friends, if you want that done, then all of a sudden we really don't actually need originators, and that really is the truth.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you connected that dot. And just like people are like, well, I don't go to closings or I don't do any of this stuff. I do all my transactions. Well, they can just fill out my website link and do that. Which, hey, I love that. I love an online shop. I love a website link. Don't give me a PDF I got to fill out. Yes. But one of the things we're seeing with Gen Z and also some younger millennials is they are scared. They want hand holding. They're more likely to talk to mom and dad or
Mhm.
friends and say, like, what do I do? Is there someone I can talk to? They'll go online, they'll watch TikToks, they'll Google, they'll do lots of research in ad infinitum. But at the end of the day, they're like, okay, I need someone to hold my hand. I want
Right.
someone who's gonna pick up the phone and answer my inane questions at 11 o'clock at night. And the loan officers who get that and are willing to coach and be there and build relationships. And yeah, I did a loan for your mom and dad. I'm so excited to see the next generation building wealth. Let me see how I can help you. Those are the ones that win. And you're not going to replace that relationship building and that coaching. I agree. It'll be the last to go with AI. And once it's done that, yeah, there won't be a place.
It's going to be right, and it depends on how long you want your career to last. Wait, what do you want your career to last 5 more years? Do you want your career to last 10 years? You can make that decision now, and you make that decision every day based on your interaction with the technology provided to you by your company. Hard stop. And I mean, I don't mean to be bullish about it, but that is the reality that we currently live in. Anyone who comes and says, I just had somebody tell me yesterday, I'm going to have to go through all the hard drives I have for the last 20 years because I really want to build my database. And I was thinking, like, don't, Kelly, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like, all right, I got to. Sir, if this thing is older than 18 months old, I do not want to see it near database. So please don't unearth things like that. I want you to think about the way that the world is. Okay, not the way that it was or the relationships you had in the past, because right now is the first day of how we're going to do it moving forward. And so I can't go back 5 years ago, pick up an email address from somebody who you haven't spoken with, that you don't even know what the relationship was, re-engage that person. It's that might be considered spam, can't be sure. But then I can't put those pieces together. That person probably moved 6 times, has another email address. By the time we run that down, I could have had 5 leads for you. And so I don't, and it's, people think that sometimes I kind of talk about simplistically, and there's nothing simple about what we're talking about doing, but it is changing the mindset that you have back into, I'm going to have to take this application with someone on the phone. I don't want to. No one wants to. We totally get that you don't want to. But sometimes we have to do the hard stuff if we're going to make, four, five, $600,000 a year. We have to do things that we don't want to do sometimes. And right now, that means going back to the things that used to work and creating those relationships and those just incredibly reciprocal referral relationships. And you're doing that right now by being someone who has really good education for your realtor partners, because look at the zone we're in this summer, right? No one knows what's up or down. I have a listing agent coming to my house today to talk to me about putting my house on the market. Even I'm kind of confused as to what I'm supposed to say about buyers agents and how we're going to compensate them. And yet I'm reading stuff every day. So there's an opportunity for all originators, I think, to have these incredibly deep, important conversations. And it's just a matter of setting up a Zoom call or picking up that phone or taking someone to lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. The opportunity to provide support to real estate agents, we're very excited about it. I think it's an incredible moment where you can say, hey, this is the moment we've been waiting for. I can provide you education, technology, resources, a strategy. You're not alone. And when they're having those conversations, and I think we may see the referrals kind of, the headwinds change, where
Mm-hmm.
more people are coming to their loan officer or their trusted financial advisor first, and then saying, okay, what kind of real estate agent should I be working with? And then making sure the real estate agents are educated. We've been starting to focus on a lot of automation and technology solutions for real estate agents, and they are blown away. I have recordings where I'm speaking with our head of retail sales to real estate agents, and they can't even imagine the type of things that have happened in the mortgage space. They're just they're almost in a different decade, and that stuff has been working, but you can help them elevate. They're not used to technology and data driven and automation. That's not the world of real estate. It's a
Oh, yeah.
lot of, the glamour shot with the Vaseline on the lens.
Heck
That's
yeah. Love a good glamour shot. I think well, we're gonna have to, like, you and I are gonna have to schedule a separate like call. We'll have like another one of these sessions, because one is it because I could talk to you probably for the next 6 hours. And then two is there is so much to talk about just with that one topic. The future co-branding of technologies, the shared collaboration of databases, being able to serve your realtor partner with a data-driven decision when they don't have access to the kind of data that we have, right? And it's an insane playing field right now, that if you're smart and in this industry, that's what you're kind of looking toward the future for, because real estate agents are going to need to have the same toolkit that we have. And the reason we have it is because we're only 5 years behind, and we had all this money for a really long time. So some of us have stuff, and plus all of our tech vendors get money for, naming themselves. It seems, sorry, that's terrible. That's not really, I just feel like every day there's a new tech company that's getting like $10 billion. And I'm like, but I don't even know who you are. How did you get money? Like, if you're not even on my radar, how are you getting all this money? But I think that that would be such a incredibly beneficial thing for brokers and loan officers to hear about, right? About the future of what these co-branded, just sort of hybrid tech platforms, where we can give them some tools. Because I'm going to speak for both of us. And then I'll ask you, if you if you give me a referral partner who brings 10 closed loans per year to a loan officer, or a real estate agent who has a database of 3,000 people, I'm going to take the database. I'd rather the database than the 10. I know I'll find 10 in the database, so it's cool. It's still going to work. But being able to create systems that realtors are glued into because they see how effective marketing and data can be, to me that's a bigger win. But I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, 100%. There is some very interesting prospecting technology that we're looking at, some experimental stuff. And that was actually a comment made by our CEO, Paul Rosso, is start with the real estate agent's database. There's gold in their hills, right? If
Yep.
you've got someone who closed a loan last year, 2 years ago, they're probably not going to refinance. They're probably not going to buy and sell again. But if you have this ocean of people who've raised their hand, I have an appetite to buy, or I'm a current homeowner and I'm not going anywhere because I got a 2% rate, but boy, I sure would love to put a pool in or add an extra bedroom or renovate in the property, and I need cash to do that. There's so much opportunities in there. And the real estate agents, I don't want to speak for all because I don't know all, but I'm assuming the vast majority do not have access to the type of technology that we have. And if they are partnering with the right lender and the right loan officer who's been educated, it's amazing the innovation that we can pull out of it and the sheer volume of leads that we can pull out of it. And it's all automated. It's really exciting. Yeah, I would love to have a conversation with you on that because we're going really deep in that. And I'm actually creating an internal library that eventually I want to make external of all of the resources and the tools and how we're going to partner with real estate agents, help them succeed. Because this is the time. They've given us so much for so many years, and
Yes.
now it's time to give back and make them successful and say, hey, that's what a partnership is. We both lean on each other when times are rough, and we're ready to serve.
And Robin, you and I are already in scuba gear under the water. Okay, we already have all the fish, so it's just one more thing, just one more fish to put on a hook. I mean, we might as well do it if we're under here. Listen, friend, I just really appreciate your time. I have certainly enjoyed getting to know you better and hear what you're doing over at PRMG. So I just wanted to say thanks so much for taking the time to be on the Minds of Mortgage podcast.
This was amazing. Thank you so much, Kelly. This is an absolute privilege, and I love just your ideas and the way that you think about this space. It's extremely refreshing.
Well, it's great to have people like you to talk to about all of these things, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good.
All right, Fred.